Your brain is kind of running on this secret programming. Every single day, it's taking these little mental shortcuts to make judgments and decisions. And most of the time, you don't even know what's happening. So let's dive into one of the most powerful ones.
All right, take a quick look here. Don't overthink it. Just go with your gut. Whatever your first impression was, just hang on to that thought for a second. Because what you just did, that's a perfect example of a powerful mental shortcut in action. So, that first impression you just formed, well, it has incredible staying power. It can create this powerful halo that, casts a glow on everything else you might learn about a person. And it subtly changes your perception without you even realizing it. So what this is the halo effect. It's when just one positive trait, let's say you find someone really friendly, spills over and makes you assume they're also intelligent and honest and competent. Your brain just takes that one piece of data and builds a whole consistent story around it. And of course, this works both ways. The opposite is called the horn effect. If your first impression of someone is negative, maybe they seem a little rude, you're way more likely to judge their work, their ideas, and even their appearance more harshly. It's the same exact shortcut, just, leading you down a totally different path. Now, this isn't just some abstract idea, right? It's been proven in some really clever experiments. There's a classic study that just brilliantly shows how powerful this bias is out in the real world. So back in 1977, psychologists Nisbet and Wilson set up this fascinating test. They had students watch a video of a college instructor. And the key here is that the man in the video was identical in every physical way. I mean, same person, same clothes, same accent. And the results here are just fascinating. Remember, the only thing that changed was the instructor's vibe. In one video, he was warm and engaging. In the other, he was cold and rigid. Well, the data shows that when he was warm, students rated his physical appearance, his mannerisms, and his accent as appealing. But when he was cold, those exact same traits were suddenly seen as irritating. His personality created a halo, or horns, that completely changed how students perceived reality itself. But wait, here is the absolute kicker. When the researchers asked the students if their liking of the instructor influenced their ratings, they all said no. In fact, the group that saw the cold instructor, they insisted it was the other way around. They claimed his irritating mannerisms and his accent were what made them dislike him. So not only were they totally unaware of the bias, they got the cause and effect completely backward. So the halo effect is just one of many, many hidden shortcuts our brains use. These shortcuts have a name. They're called cognitive biases, and they are a fundamental part of how we process the world around us. The best way to think of a cognitive bias is like a rule of thumb that your brain uses to save energy. I mean, instead of analyzing every single piece of information from scratch, it just relies on these pre-programmed patterns. It's super efficient, but as we just seen, it's not always accurate. Basically, these shortcuts help our brains solve 4 huge problems. First, there's just too much information out there, so we have to filter it. Second, there's not always enough meaning, so we fill in the gaps. Third, we need to act fast, so we make quick conclusions. And fourth, we can't possibly remember everything, so we find efficient ways to store it. Biases are just the brain's answer to all these challenges. Okay, so why does all this matter? Because these shortcuts play out in really high-stakes environments, like the workplace, where they can have some major consequences. Let's just see how a few of them can stack up in something like a hiring decision. It can all start with affinity bias. You know that gut feeling when someone just clicks? Well, we're naturally drawn to people who remind us of ourselves. Maybe they went to the same school or like the same stuff. A hiring manager feels this click with a candidate, and boom, there's an instant positive halo. It feels totally harmless, but it can lead us to overlook more qualified candidates just because they're different. Then the candidate mentions their previous salary. That number, even if it's from a completely different industry, becomes an anchor. Because of anchoring bias, that very first piece of information sets the reference point for the whole negotiation, making it incredibly hard for the manager to move too far away from it. And finally, a really big one kicks in: confirmation bias. So the manager already likes the candidate because of that affinity bias, and they're anchored to a high salary. Now their brain will actively start looking for evidence that proves they're right, focusing on the candidate's strengths while maybe downplaying their weaknesses or ignoring little red flags. You can see how these biases all working together can systematically lead to a flawed decision. The halo effect, affinity bias, anchoring, confirmation. This is just the tip of the iceberg.
Psychologists have actually identified over 150 of these cognitive biases that can quietly influence crucial decisions in hiring, promotions, and just day-to-day management.
So, are we doomed? Are we just run by our brain's faulty programming? Not at all. The key to overcoming these biases is to move from that automatic, fast thinking to more deliberate, slow thinking. Here's a simple 3-step strategy. First, just be aware. Seriously, just acknowledging that these shortcuts exist is the most critical step. Second, slow down. Don't let your gut reaction make the final call. Give yourself a minute. And third, be systematic. Use things like checklists or specific criteria or data to make your decisions. That forces your brain to engage analytically instead of just relying on a simple halo or a gut feeling.
Being aware of these biases is like gaining a superpower. It doesn't mean they just disappear, but it does mean you can start to spot them in yourself and in others. So the next time you form an instant opinion, you can pause and ask yourself, is this real or is it just a halo?